Welcome, friends, gamers, and other enthusiasts to the BoydofZINJ channel. I hope you enjoy your time here and the video. Please like, subscribe, do all the bell icons, and comment. It really does help small content creators like myself and others by doing so. If you click on the notifications, it may even let others and the YouTube gods know that they may enjoy these videos. With that being said, let's play. Hello, friends. This is BoydofZINJ. And again, this is something different. This is something I've been thinking about. This is going to be a short series about the reasoning on why I'm using Battletech to help flesh out a City Skylines game. First and foremost, the game we're playing is City Skylines. So all the we're playing it with all the DLCs. The City Skylines 2 will be coming out shortly. I purchased all major DLCs. The only DLCs I don't have are some music/radio DLCs. And since I'm a lowly content creator, I do not play music on the background for content strike situations. Regardless, I'm using BattleTech as the background. What is BattleTech? BattleTech is a tabletop. Started off originally as a tabletop war game. Eventually, there's other games that came out of it, role-playing game, novels, a bunch of source books, comics, a cartoon, and of course, video games, as you can see in the background. This is Battletech. While the vast majority of people think of Battletech as mech-to-mech combat, infantry combat, what have you, which it is, there are other aspects to the universe, one of which is transportation. To travel from star system to star system requires what is known as a jump ship. Jump ships are large, valuable, and fragile starships that use KF jump drives to travel from one star system to another These jump ships are very valuable, but also very, very fragile, and often avoid combat and can be easily destroyed. In 3025, the era that the refugees left the inner sphere, very few places could manufacture jump ships at this time. As a result, they were a commodity that often would avoid combat at all costs. Jump ships would use what is known as KF jump drives or Kearney Fukita drives. And these drives would tear the fabric of space and transport the jump ship from one location instantaneously to another location, often several light years away. However, jump ships were very fragile. As a result, the safest spots that a jump ship would go to would be spots above and below the plane of a star. And these planes were a distance from most planets. And the reason why is the jump ships, again, were very fragile. Jump ships wanted to avoid gravity wells, wanted to avoid planetary debris such as asteroids, comets, what have you. By 3025, most major factions, actually all major factions within the inner sphere, lost the capabilities of mass producing or even fixing jump ships. While a few could be made per year, very few could be maintained indefinitely or to be kept in pristine condition. As a result, jump ships were a very valuable commodity. The inner sphere would have certain laws to protect jump ships from attacks in combat. This was known as the Ares Convention. While the Ares Convention did do a number of things, it did protect jump ships. And most people and most organizations and most factions honored it. However, some people were desperate, especially pirates. Pirates tend to go outside the law. And as a result, in this situation, in this scenario, desperate pirates attacked these jump ships that had a large number of refugees, over millions of refugees. And the jump ship commander got scared and made an unauthorized and unscheduled jump. And unfortunately for the jump ship commander, the KF jump drives were damaged. And when the ship jumped, it did what was known as a misjump. A misjump is when a jump ship goes to an unscheduled and a random location with somewhere in the universe. It could be anywhere. And this is exactly what happened. Technically, it's a tear, it calls a tear in the fabric of the universe. It may not even be in the original universe. It may be in a different universe. It may be in a different galaxy, maybe in a different time frame. Who knows? Regardless, the refugees found themselves in a strange star system, possibly a strange in a strange galaxy with no hope of return, no hope of traveling outside the galaxies. The KF jump drives were destroyed, and the solar system that they were in did not have the resources or minerals to rebuild or fix the jump drives. So the refugees were stuck here. The system that they found themselves into was a binary star system. The star system was eventually called Neo Sol. This star system had two stars, Neo Sol Prime and Neo Sol Beta. Both of these stars were older stars with lower luminosity than the standard star from Terra, from Earth. However, since their orbit was very tight, the overall luminosity was about the same strength, the same distance away from Earth. Approximately one astronomical unit away, the refugees found a planet called Neo Terra. Neo Terra was a very poor, mineral poor planet. However, it could support life. At first glance, it looked like Mars. But It did have oceans. It did have an atmosphere, and it had the beginnings of simplistic life. Complex life forms, large life forms, were not found yet. The vast majority of life forms were only found in the oceans and rivers within the planet. I've in, have included a diagram of Neo So, and you'll notice that the Neo Terra, which is orbiting the center of mass of both star systems in a very stable orbit. The orbit itself takes approximately one standard Earth year, actually slightly longer, which means the calendar has been altered. February, for instance, no longer has just 28 days. I believe February has to be altered to be 31 days. In fact, I believe all months have to be altered to be 31 days. When the refugees located Neo Terra, at first they were horrified. The planet looked like Mars. Luckily for them, it had life and it had potential. However, oxygen was still not present in the biosphere. The planet itself had no major plants or fauna. As a result, no oxygen producing uh, plants were present. I want you to remember one thing. Most of these refugees were people who were fleeing warfare, were fleeing combat. Most of the time, they had nothing except what was on their backs or what was given them as charity. Most of these people were not highly educated, were not scientists, were not biologists, were not people who were wanted to create new life on a new planet. These people were vastly unprepared. Comstar had sent a few shuttle pods to process the refugees. As a result, there were some scientists and there were some bureaucrats and even some soldiers from Comstar. However, the vast majority of the people were simple refugees looking to start a new life. Eventually, it was determined that Neo Terra could be terraformed and it could be very Earth like. It had an active mantle core, meaning that there is lava, there is potential of geothermal activity, volcanoes. Likewise, it had a very uh, decent tilt in the orbit, so there would be in some locations different uh, weather effects as well as seasons: spring, fall, winter, summer. The biggest drawback was the rotation. Even though the vast majority of the planet had temperatures comparable of Earth, and at the poles had extreme temperatures, extreme cold temperatures, and there is also some extreme, heat temperatures, throughout the planet as well as deserts. The vast majority of the planet had a temperate zone, and there was large majority of temperate zones within the planet itself. However, the rotation of the planet was very slow. A full rotation would take approximately 133 Earth days. And just remember, this is City Skyline situation. I'm trying to explain using Battletech, sci-fi, mumbo jumbo, but in reality, the reason I'm using this number is because that's the actual time frame. From midnight to midnight in City Skylines is 113 days. As a result, this planet has a rotation of 113 days. Again, City Skyline situation. But we're using the Battletech universe and some science fiction mumbo jumbo to explain it. It did take the refugees nearly 2,000 years to terraform the planet to the point where fauna was growing. Luckily for the refugees, there were a few botanists on board that were able to transport and seed the planet with Earth-like trees and vegetation. However, there was an active ecosystem in the oceans and the rivers on the planet. And there were a few biologists out there that had biological DNA from earth fishes and was able to manufacture tuna, anchovies, shellfishes onto the oceans of Neo Terra. And with the existing life forms, it meant that you could fish and the fish could be edible to humans. The first city that was developed on Neo Terra was known as Unity Prime. Unity Prime was the largest city to date on Neo Terra, and where all the dropships landed. From there, several exploration crafts as well as several explorers start to explore the newly terraformed Neo Terra, looking for places to colonize and build cities on. The colonists are now here on the planet. As a result, they're going to be, expanding and building cities. One such zone was found in a bunch of islands in a very temperate area of the planet. While the area itself did have fluctuations, and seasons, it was still very temperate, meaning that it was more warm than cold. This area and zone, the city was discovered by an explorer named Eduardo Clark. He was a Comstar person who loved to explore. He was in the Explorer Corps in Comstar. Very few of the Comstar individuals were from the Explorer Corps. However, Eduardo Clark was one of them. And using funding from the BoydofZINJ family, Eduardo Clark found a very suitable location. And after the green light was given, the BoydofZINJ family hired contractors to build a city in this area. Now, let's talk about the people, the refugees in general. Most of the refugees within this scenario were from the inner sphere. As a result, they all came from one of the five major factions. The five major factions, and again, this is in no particular order, and I'm showing a map of the inner sphere circa 3025. On top right is House Krita, which is the Draconis Combine. In yellow, bottom right, is the Federated Sons, which is House Davian. Bottom center, green, which is the Capellan Confederation, House Lyle. Bottom left, purple, which is House Merrick or the Free Rogues League. And lastly but not least, blue, top left, which is House Steiner or the Lyran Commonwealth. There was also another faction that was there, Comstar. Comstar in the Battletech universe controlled Earth, the cradle of society, and they stayed neutral, especially in this time frame. Later on, there was other events that would happen. There is also the periphery states. In this scenario, there were a few people from the periphery states. However, their numbers were low, and they're considered a minor faction at best. Each faction, each of the five major houses, is considered a major faction within my gameplay of City Skylines. There is also the sixth faction, which is Comstar, which is a somewhat major faction. However, they are staying neutral for the most part. Comstar primarily is the police and the infrastructure, the firemen, the medics, the teachers of the area. And in general, their goal is to try to educate and make sure the humans here are prosperous and survive. The other factions all want to dominate each other, some of which have started having alliances. You have to remember, this is 3025. The people, the refugees that left the inner sphere, this happened before the formation of the Federated Commonwealth, which is the union of House Lyle, I'm sorry, which is the union of House Davian and House Steiner that ate up most of House Lyle, at least the north part of House Lyle, and formed a super alliance called the Federated Commonwealth. This was before then. However, in 3022, House Steiner wanted to start peace, and only the Davians responded. And since Davians and Steiners were on opposite sides of the galaxies, they rarely fought each other. So they saw themselves as neutral allies. And a lot of people started respecting each other. So the Davians and the Steiners are forming a small alliance even here. But you have to remember, this is about 20 to 25 generations after the fact. And in an alternate reality where it never happened, but might have happened. So this is the way we're going to view it with the lens, where it didn't happen yet, but people were considering it. And there will be some Federated Commonwealth, locations and areas. However, both factions will remain separate. I will have discussions about every major faction that is present in this new planet of Neo Terra in other videos. This video is primarily just an overall view of the star system and the way how we're going to be going through this series. You have to remember, every faction wants to dominate for themselves. Within each faction, there will be corporations, businesses, sometimes even farming uh, organizations, people, and noblemen who are all vying for control and will have influence over their district or their area of the city. But again, this is still a city. There is still one mayor. The mayor lives in Internationalville. I'm going to portray the city very similar to the Solaris city, where there's going to be an international district and there'll be a district for each of the major factions. And on the screen, you can see how it is in the Battletech universe. This is the Solaris 7 city. This will be not a blueprint, but this will be just something to think about. The international zone that I will be creating will be different than in a different location, as well as the other factions. After Eduardo Clark discovered the area, the family and the rich noblemen of BoydofZINJ petitioned the government to give them the rights to build a city in this area. And this is the starting area. The block that you see here is basically where the international district will be starting at. The international district is designed to be the unity of all places. Now, I view the top part to be north, the down part to be south, obviously left is west, and right is east, based on the way how the map is looking at this time. The other thing about the BoydofZINJ family is we were directed by the government to try and stay ecologically friendly. We have to, make sure that this planet, because this is probably the only planet that we can ever settle on, to reduce pollution whenever possible. There will be pollution, obviously, but try to reduce it whenever possible. Likewise, we need to build farming. We need to make sure, this area has some very rich farm potential in some areas. And we need to you know, utilize some of this farming area. On the flip side, we are also given directive that we need to build a very robust city and try to educate our population and to try and integrate all major factions in, into the city. This is going to be a blueprint for all city. So again, this is the start of the international zone of Boyton. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment. If you have any suggestions or naming conventions, please leave a comment. I know previously I did say episode one it was going to start dealing to the south with House Lyle and the farming. However, after some further thoughts, I thought I'll go over more of the international district, and I'll start renaming some of the facilities and let you, the viewers, and understand why I'm picking certain names. The major, the only major faction in the international zone will be Comstar. There will be names from other various factions, and again, you have to remember the refugees' point of view. Yes, there are. If you are familiar with the Battletech universe and the Battletech novels and source books and all the games and what have you, you know a lot of information about Battletech. So do I. But you have to look at it from the refugees' point of view. Most of these refugees are lowly people who never had access to top secret information or classified plans or, of course, future information. As a result, most of the novels dealt with classified information, top secret situations that the common citizen, the common person would never have known. I like to, keep everyone, you know, I want everyone to keep that in mind when I start doing naming conventions. The Wolf's Dragoons, for instance, we all know are as part of the clans, which is the children of Kerensky. However, at this time, no one outside of the original founders of the Wolf's Dragoons knew that. Most people thought they were just friendly mercenaries who were doing the Inner Sphere justice by helping out the Inner Sphere. And this is just an example of how I'm going to be using my logic with the citizens and of the Inner Sphere and the refugees of this planet, and complementing them with City Skylines. You're going to see roads named after Clark, for instance. Why am I using Clark's name? This is the explorer that founded the area. Likewise, you may see some Wolf's Dragoons in the international districts. Why? They were a mercenary organization that worked for every major faction within the Inner Sphere, and they were considered good guys for the most part. And again, the common person would not have known anything beyond that. The St. Ives Compact in Lyle were still very loyal. This is before the succession of them in the Fourth Succession War. The Fourth Succession War never happened. The Federated Commonwealth had not happened yet. However, there was already talks, and both sides, both Lyles and, I'm sorry, I keep on saying Lyles, both Steiners and Davians knew that their sides were about to ally with each other, but nothing happened yet. As a result, both sides are friendly towards each other. Both of these factions will be friendly, and there will be some Federated Commonwealth themed areas and districts, perhaps, but for the most part, they will be separate from each other. The other factions may have some quasi alliance, which will deviate from the history as well. However, most of the factions, again, want to benefit themselves and their people first. And it kind of makes sense. Why help someone else if your people are, not being helped first? You want to make sure your people are helped first and then help someone else, is the way how most of these factions are going to be operating. And most of the factions, again, they're going to have names from various capital planets, history leaders, organizations, what have you. And we'll talk about various factions or each various factions in order. The next the next one on our list will be Comstar. Comstar should be relatively short. There's not Comstar faction, and this is just as an FYI, is a minor faction in this City Skylines game, and the vast majority of the reason why is because very few Comstar representatives were with the refugees. Several Comstar com guards, security people, and a few bureaucrats were around when the refugees did that unscheduled emergency misjump into this star system. I hope you enjoy yourself here, and thank you very much. It's that time of the video where I'd say adios. Thank you for watching, and if you're hearing this, I really like to say thank you for staying at least this long or skipping to the end. I really appreciate it. Better yet, the YouTube gods seem to enjoy it. Please like, subscribe, click on the bell icon to notification alerts. It really does help content creators like myself. I need the help. If you have any suggestions about my YouTube content or my channel or about this video, I'd love to hear it. Please leave a comment. Regardless, I'd like to thank you for watching. Stay safe, be entertained, enjoy life, and until next time, adios, goodbye. Hope your RNG is better than mine. Thank you.
All hands, initiate shutdown sequence.